Level 1. At the base of the Axis hierarchy were the minor collaborator states, Slovakia, Croatia, and Hungary. These smaller nations aligned with Germany to secure protection, reclaim territory, or preserve influence in a region dominated by larger powers. Slovakia emerged after Czechoslovakia's partition, governed under strong German supervision, while sending divisions to fight on the Eastern Front. Croatia, created by the Ustaša regime in 1941, controlled parts of Yugoslavia and enforced Axis policies with extreme loyalty. Hungary sought to reverse the territorial losses imposed by the Treaty of Trianon, gaining land through its alliance with Berlin. Despite having their own armies and flags, all three remained politically dependent on Germany. They represented the outer circle of Axis cooperation, obedient states providing soldiers and resources, yet never invited into true decision-making power. Level 2. The next tier of Axis control was formed by occupied puppet governments, regimes that appeared independent but operated entirely under Axis supervision. Vichy France ruled the unoccupied part of France after 1940, yet every major order came from Berlin. Its leaders collaborated with Germany, supplying labour, industry, and intelligence. In Asia, Japan established the puppet state of Manchukuo in Manchuria, placing former Chinese Emperor Puyi as a symbolic ruler, while Japanese officials held real power. Another was the Nanjing regime, a collaborationist government in occupied China led by Wang Jingwei. These regimes represented obedience disguised as sovereignty, tools for propaganda and local control, extending Axis influence without full occupation. Level 3. Rising higher in the Axis hierarchy were the regional and co-belligerent allies, nations that were not conquered but voluntarily fought alongside the Axis powers for their own strategic goals. Finland joined Germany in 1941 to reclaim territories lost to the Soviet Union during the Winter War, maintaining its own command structure while coordinating offensives on the northern front. Romania, motivated by the loss of Bessarabia and northern Bukovina, contributed hundreds of thousands of soldiers and vital oil supplies from Ploiesti, becoming one of Germany's most important partners, until it switched sides in 1944. Thailand, seeking to preserve sovereignty and recover lands from British Malaya and French Indochina, aligned with Japan after 1942. These nations held more autonomy than the puppet states, but remained strategically dependent on Germany or Japan, their cooperation driven by geography, ambition, and survival. Level 4. Moving upward, the next step in the Axis hierarchy was the secondary major power, the Kingdom of Italy under Benito Mussolini. Italy stood as Germany's first and closest European partner, sharing both fascist ideology and expansionist ambitions. Before the war, Italy had conquered Ethiopia and Albania, forming an African and Balkan foothold for the Axis. Its military campaign stretched across North Africa, Greece and the Mediterranean, though many ended in defeat. After Mussolini's fall in 1943, Italy split. The South joined the Allies, while the North became the Italian Social Republic, a German puppet. Despite being a founding Axis member, Italy's inconsistent leadership and strained economy made it more of a follower than an equal to Germany. Yet it remained central to Axis identity and propaganda throughout the early years of the war. Level 5. At the fifth tier stood the dominant Axis power in Europe, Nazi Germany, the military and ideological core of the alliance. Under Adolf Hitler's rule, Germany transformed from a recovering nation into a vast war machine. Its forces pioneered blitzkrieg tactics, conquering most of Europe within 2 years. German industry fueled this momentum, producing tanks, aircraft and weapons on an unmatched scale. The Nazi Party controlled every part of society, blending nationalism, propaganda, and repression into a single command system. Berlin dictated Axis policies, directed puppet governments, and coordinated campaigns across the continent. Every alliance, occupation, and collaboration ultimately revolved around Germany's decisions. It was the unquestioned centre of Axis power, feared, disciplined, and determined to dominate Europe through both ideology and arms. Level 6. Parallel to Germany's dominance in Europe stood the major Axis power in Asia, the Empire of Japan. Driven by a belief in imperial destiny, Japan sought to build the Greater East Asia co-prosperity sphere, a self-sufficient empire led by Tokyo and free from Western influence. Its military expansion began with the invasion of China in 1937 and rapidly extended across Southeast Asia and the Pacific after 1941. Japanese forces occupied vast territories from Korea and Manchuria to the Philippines, Indonesia and Burma, imposing strict control and exploiting local resources. The empire's navy rivaled the world's best, and its army fought with fierce discipline. At its peak, Japan appeared unstoppable, shaping the entire Asian theatre of war. Yet its dominance came at immense cost, as resistance movements and Allied offensives gradually turned the tide against it. Japan represented the eastern pillar of the Axis, powerful, organised, and uncompromising. Level 7. At the very top of the Axis hierarchy stood the Alliance Command, the formal union of Germany, Italy, and Japan under the Tripartite Pact of 1940. Signed in Berlin, this agreement aimed to divide the world into spheres of influence. Germany ruling Europe, Italy dominating Africa and the Mediterranean, and Japan controlling Asia and the Pacific. It symbolized the peak of Axis cooperation, binding three empires under shared military and ideological goals. Despite vast distances and cultural differences, they exchanged intelligence, technology, and strategy. Yet the alliance was fragile, coordination was weak, and mutual distrust grew as the war turned against them. Still, the Tripartite Pact marked the height of Axis ambition, a vision of global dominance led by three powers that sought to reshape the world order through conquest and control. It was the ultimate expression of Axis unity, grand in vision, but doomed in reality.